Greetings from Wisdom Words, a peaceful place to pause and reflect. One story at a time, we examine timeless teachings about life, serenity, and purpose here. So, pause, inhale, and let's get started. Silence has a subtle power that most people don't realize. Words, explanations, and continuous communication are valued in our society. We feel that if we speak enough, people would understand, so we hurry to explain, to justify, to communicate. However, there are instances where the reality is nearly the reverse. Sometimes people don't listen to us until we stop talking, take a step back, or just be there without trying to sell our point. Consider this: how many times have you felt ignored when attempting to explain your thoughts or feelings to someone? You talk. You give an explanation. You say it again. Still, the connection appears to be erratic. You encounter more opposition the harder you push. And it's simple to lose sight of the fact that silence can sometimes be more effective than words in expressing annoyance. Space is made possible by silence. There should be room for introspection, awareness, and genuine listening from others. When we talk non-stop, we create our own noise, which fills the room. We give the other person little opportunity to express their own ideas and understanding. However, the atmosphere feels different when we stop and resist the need to explain. Our presence is felt abruptly. All of a sudden, our silence is more powerful than words. I have a friend who had been trying to express how hurt she was in a relationship for months. Every discussion ended in disagreements or miscommunications. She made an effort to argue with him, beg him, and explain her viewpoint, but to no avail. Then she stopped one day. She ceased her explanation. She gave up attempting to get his attention. She just exuded quiet elegance and composure. He eventually became aware of her presence, her limits, and the intensity of her emotions in that quiet, in addition to her speech. He didn't really hear her till then. This teaches us that we are rarely heard until we cease demanding to be heard. It's an odd paradox. Quietness is strength, not resignation. It is faith in the nuanced rhythms of comprehension and the belief that clarity will emerge at the appropriate moment. Think about how this relates to other aspects of your life. Speaking non-stop may not necessarily result in understanding, whether in friendships, professional contexts, or even during times of conflict. The clarity we've been looking for can occasionally be found by taking a step back, paying attention, and making time for introspection. Understanding can paint itself on the blank canvas that silence creates. Take a moment to think: have you ever tried too hard to be understood in your life? Where have your repeatedly stated words gone wrong? And how might others finally understand the core of what you've been trying to say through your calm, silence, and presence? I have another story to tell. One man I knew put forth a lot of effort to explain his project idea to his co-workers. He argued, he illustrated, and he explained. However, the same problems continued. He retreated in frustration. He spoke less, listened more, and concentrated on completing his work consistently and clearly rather than trying to convince others. His co-workers gradually, very subtly, started to pay attention, to follow his example, and to comprehend not just the words but also their meaning. His answers had never been as loud as his silence. This lesson has an emotional and personal component as well. We run the risk of introducing emotion into the message when we speak continuously while feeling offended, angry, or frustrated. We run the risk of being misunderstood. We run the risk of wearing both the other person and ourselves out. In this situation, silence turns into a self-care strategy. It enables us to focus ourselves, process internally, and communicate our truth as a presence that people can truly connect with rather than as a flood. How frequently do you speak out of a desire to be correct, to be understood, or to influence the result? And how might genuine communication be hampered by that desire? How would you feel if you took a step back, stopped, and let the message be conveyed through silence? I've also seen this work really well with parenting. Like everyone else, children frequently object to repeated explanations, lectures, and orders. However, a quiet, peaceful presence, listening, watching, and being really present can impart more knowledge than 100 words. They can see, feel, and comprehend on their own when there is silence, which turns into a mirror. The subtle paradox is that others will ultimately hear us, not just what we say, but also the truth we hold, the breadth of our experience, and the integrity of our presence. The minute we give up attempting to impose knowledge, trust the process of awareness, and embrace quiet. Now, take a deep breath. Consider a scenario in which you have been striving to be understood by talking non-stop. Imagine not having to justify yourself. Instead, think about allowing your genuineness, your silence, and your presence to speak. Take note of the emotions that surface. Liberty? Fear? Solace? These are all natural, and each of them contributes to the path of non-coercive knowledge. This leads to a fundamental realization: stillness is not absence. Silence does not equate to loss. A strong communication tool, silence can be used to express presence, respect, and clarity. Instead of pursuing an unattainable version of ourselves, it enables the other person to meet us where we are. An insight frequently arises spontaneously, effortlessly, and unexpectedly when that space is permitted. As you proceed, keep this in mind: the next time you feel ignored or your words seem to be ignored, take a moment to think. Take a step back. Take a breath. Let the weight of your truth be carried by your silence. And have faith that eventually they will hear, not because you yelled or gave an explanation, but because your calm and steady presence has finally done the talking. Many of us only discover this important lesson about silence via experience. When we stop making such a concerted effort to be heard, people are more likely to listen to us. Isn't that counterintuitive? We believe that communication consists of talking, elaborating, and repeating until we get our message. However, presence, patience, and the subtle ability of self-control are more important factors in comprehension than words alone. Consider it. How many times have you tried to communicate your emotions to someone and been disappointed when they didn't get it? In the hopes that your words would eventually make sense, you dispute, clarify, and repeat yourself. Nevertheless, something is lost in the process. It's frequently impossible to force the core of what you're attempting to say, including the emotion, authenticity, and depth. One woman I know had been trying to make her partner see things her way for years. In the hopes that he would finally get it, she would talk, clarify, and occasionally even dispute, but nothing changed. Then one day she decided to say nothing. She gave up trying to convince him. She gave up trying to get recognition. She just let her presence speak for itself and lived her truth. And he started to notice, gently, almost subtly. Not because she had given him additional explanations, but because she had given up trying so hard to explain, he started to get it. There's something special about silence that makes room. Space for introspection, listening, and the development of genuine understanding. People may become overwhelmed by our incessant verbal bombardment, leaving little space for their own thinking. However, when we stop trying to persuade or justify, something amazing occurs. Our presence turns into a mirror. What we've been attempting to say all along is seen, felt, and absorbed by people. Silence also has a component of self-respect. You can frequently become exhausted, irritated, and nervous by talking non-stop, repeating yourself, or trying to comprehend others. Conversely, silence enables you to safeguard your vitality. It enables you to respect your own experience without being reliant on approval from others. You can regain a sense of clarity and serenity that words cannot provide by taking a step back. Think about an example from the workplace. A manager tried to explain the significance of a new method to a team member for months. He continually followed up, clarified, and provided examples. But the realization never quite clicked. Then he decided that rather than pushing more, he should back off, give the worker some room, and have faith that experience and observation would teach him the lesson. The team member gradually started to understand the procedure, not as a result of constant clarification, but rather because the calm environment fostered introspection and insight. This idea holds true for all types of partnerships. Silence can disclose more in relationships, friendships, and family dynamics than words ever could. It demonstrates self-control, honesty, and the power of your presence. It conveys your sense of stability, awareness, and grounding without using force. And people frequently hear you at last in that steadfastness. Take a moment to think, in which relationships have you been communicating all the time in an attempt to be understood? Where would there be space for true understanding if we took a step back, listened more, and trusted the silence? What if you allowed your actions to speak louder than your words? Patience is also taught by silence. By letting go, we give people the space they require to think, process, and discover the truth for themselves. Rarely is understanding instantaneous. It develops gradually via contemplation and observation during calm times. We respect that innate rhythm and let understanding develop on its own terms when we embrace silence. This is a profound paradox. The more we want to impose understanding, the more opposition we face. However, the barriers of miscommunication frequently start to come down when we welcome silence. Arguments lose their persuasiveness when one is patient and present. Persuasion loses ground to authenticity. And genuine understanding and connection eventually establish themselves in that area. Now, take a deep breath. Consider an instance where your voice has not been heard. Imagine taking a step back and letting silence accomplish the task you've been attempting to impose. Imagine the other person starting to notice, not what you say, but your consistency, your honesty, and your quiet truth. Take note of the sensation that comes up within you: a relief, hope, a feeling of peace. Keep it in mind. It is the initial step toward comprehension that is independent of persuasion or argument. This is a crucial realization: being silent is not a sign of weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is a powerful, profound, and purposeful form of communication. It teaches you and others to listen intently, to think, and to pay attention. Silence can also be more powerful than 1,000 words if it is employed properly. Therefore, while you go about your day, think about the ways in which silence could benefit you. Where your presence may speak for itself if you take a back seat, watch, and have faith in the process. Additionally, keep in mind that sometimes expressing nothing is not meaningless. The most effective way to be heard at last is sometimes to say nothing at all. Silence is presence, awareness, and intention rather than only the lack of words. Additionally, we frequently find that the world and those around us start to notice previously invisible things when we decide to be quiet. Being silent has a depth that words cannot describe. Silence makes most of us uncomfortable. Every time we halt, we are tempted to explain, reassure, or justify. We worry that if we remain silent, we may be misinterpreted, ignored, or forgotten. Ironically, though, the most significant communication frequently takes place during those very pauses. Silence attracts attention, encourages introspection, and enables people to meet us where we are rather than where we believe we ought to be. One acquaintance of mine put forth a lot of effort to voice her opinions at meetings. To make her point, she talked, repeated herself, and occasionally even argued. But in spite of everything she tried, she frequently felt ignored. She chose to keep quiet for a while during the subsequent conversation one day following an especially annoying session. She talked only when necessary, listened carefully, and nodded thoughtfully. She was surprised when her coworkers leaned in to ask her viewpoint, allowing her to make a significant contribution. The energy in the room had changed because of her stillness. Not because she talked more, but because she made room for them to listen intently. They were finally able to hear her. This is an important lesson: there is an attraction to silence. People may grow numb to our voice if we talk all the time. However, our presence becomes captivating when we stop and take a step back. People take note of the depth, clarity, and serenity that were always present but were obscured by the cacophony. In this sense, it may be more effective to say nothing than to say everything. We can also listen when there is silence. Absence of self and the need to react right away are prerequisites for true listening. We can observe, think, and comprehend when we stop talking. We are able to observe the nuances of tone, expression, and intent that are frequently lost in words alone. By doing this, we strengthen our bonds with other people and make room for genuine understanding and empathy. I want to tell you a story. A young educator was having difficulty running her classroom. The pandemonium all around her made her feel neglected, unheard, and furious. She made the decision to alter her strategy one day. She ceased raising her voice and giving orders all the time. Rather than speaking, she moved among her students in a composed manner, watching, listening, and allowing them to react to her presence. The classroom gradually changed. The pupils started to imitate her and react to her subdued power. Where words had failed, her quiet had fostered respect and understanding. When have you attempted to justify, convince, or explain something in your own life just to feel ignored? What if, instead, you took a step back, stopped, and let your presence do the talking? If you relied on the power of quiet instead of talking non-stop, how could people react differently? Patience is also taught by silence. We demand prompt comprehension and response in our fast-paced world. We talk, we repeat, and we anticipate quick recognition. The velocity of human processing, however, varies. To respect that rhythm, we must embrace silence. We give them the opportunity to think, absorb, and relate to what we are really saying. More comprehension is frequently gained as a result of this patience than from any debate or repeated justification. Silence also involves self-awareness. We become more aware of our own intentions, feelings, and thoughts when we decide not to talk. We are able to determine whether the words we use are essential, provide clarity, or are just noise. By strengthening our presence, this self-reflection makes sure that our words have meaning and impact when we do speak. Now take a moment. Shut your eyes and imagine a scenario in which what you said was missed or misinterpreted. Consider taking a step back. Imagine your tranquil intention, your serene presence. Observe how it generates interest, encourages contemplation, and makes room for sincere comprehension. Observe how knowing that you don't always have to talk to be heard may make you feel empowered and at ease. The communication paradox is obvious. The more we use words to try to be heard, the more we run the risk of getting lost in the shuffle. However, we encourage depth, clarity, and presence when we embrace silence. Without coercion, our truth, our identity, and our intention come into being. And people finally pay attention to us in that quiet, thoughtful, and patient area. The main takeaway from this is straightforward yet profound. Silence is a sort of presence rather than absence. It is making room for understanding, not giving up. It is strength, not weakness. Furthermore, silence has the power to communicate more effectively than words when it is employed purposefully. As you proceed, take note of any instances in which your words may be overpowering your meaning. Take note of the ways in which your silence could reveal your essence, your truth, and your presence. And believe this, the most effective way to be heard at last is sometimes to say nothing at all. Silence has a certain art, a subtle mastery that calls for faith, patience, and awareness. It's about knowing when to talk and when to just be, not about retreating into fear or contempt. And the thing that frequently enables others to actually hear us is that decision, that tiny restriction. Many of us worry that if we don't speak, people will misinterpret us or render us invisible. We fear that people will ignore us or undervalue us if we don't continuously defend or explain ourselves. Deliberate silence, however, actually has the opposite effect. It makes room for your true self to be shown. It attracts attention naturally. It conveys information in ways that words cannot. To cultivate intentional stillness, awareness is the first step. You have to pay attention to your own words, motives, and behaviors. Take note of the times when you speak more out of habit, impulsiveness, or a need for approval than out of necessity. Look for instances where your voice is taking up space that could be better utilized by silence. This awareness is a gentle contemplation that enables you to make thoughtful decisions. It is not judgment. The next stage after being aware is to exercise restraint. This is a deliberate decision rather than avoidance. Refrain from speaking right away. Hold off on answering. Give your feelings and thoughts time to calm down. Clarity frequently arises during that moment, both for you and the listener. The need to react quickly subsides when we take a step back, leaving just truth, serenity, and presence. I'll tell you a story. One young man I knew had trouble in his marriage because he was always trying to justify, defend, and make sense of his emotions. Every discussion devolved into a dispute, and comprehension appeared unattainable. He made the decision to try a new strategy one day. He did not speak at once but listened. He hesitated. He let stillness fall between them for a while. His partner started to actually hear him, not because of the volume or frequency of his remarks, but because his quiet had allowed comprehension to develop and the tension gradually subsided. Additionally, silence increases empathy. You can listen completely when you stop talking. In addition to the words, you may hear the feelings, hesitancies, and subtleties that are sometimes overlooked. The creation of space fosters empathy, and it is frequently in this space that people feel comfortable listening, thinking, and connecting. Consistency is another important idea. Silence is most effective when it is balanced and purposeful. You run the danger of causing misunderstandings or distance if you retreat too much. Your message can be lost in the shuffle if you never retreat. Knowing when to speak and when to keep quiet, as well as having faith that your integrity and presence will speak for you when words cannot, is the key to finding balance. Now take a moment. No matter how much you've explained, consider someone in your life who hasn't listened to you completely. Imagine being present, listening, and observing to create space without having to fill every pause. Consider how the dynamic might alter as a result of this modification. Take note of the subtly effective way that silence can be used to foster connection rather than absence. Another way to practice self-respect is to intentionally remain silent. It respects your personal energy, limits, and clarity. Continuous talking can drain your spiritual, mental, and emotional reserves. By accepting stillness, you allow others to reach the level of comprehension you desire while simultaneously preserving your inner tranquility. Here's a crucial takeaway: you let life happen organically when you give up attempting to dictate how other people perceive you. You let go of the need to convince and have faith that your truth will eventually be acknowledged. This is empowering as well as liberating. It serves as a reminder that presence, patience, and alignment are more important in communicating than force. Knowing that your quiet has the power to communicate brings a subtle sense of joy. That your quiet demeanor, your focus, and your perceptive observation speak louder than words ever could. It is a subdued style of understanding, leadership, and influence that doesn't depend on loudness, urgency, or demands. Consider this: where might quiet benefit you more in your daily interactions, relationships, and professional life? What more insight could be gained by stopping, listening, and observing than by speaking? Even if you are not speaking, how would it feel to know that you are being heard? Being silent is a gift to others and to yourself. It's also a skill and a discipline. It makes introspection, empathy, and genuine connection possible. It lets your presence speak without being overpowered by words. In the end, people are more likely to actually hear you when you are a calm, consistent, and purposeful presence. Practice listening without saying, seeing without responding, and trusting without coercion as you proceed. Let your voice be your presence. Additionally, keep in mind that often the deepest way to be understood is to say nothing. When you get to this point, you realize that silence is deliberate presence rather than emptiness. It is deeper communication rather than absence. Additionally, when silence is regularly practiced, it changes how you see yourself as well as how other people see you. The fact that deliberate quiet promotes genuine connection is among its most amazing features. We allow people to interact with us more honestly when we stop occupying every moment with words. They start to pick up on nuances in our demeanor, tone, and composure. They start to hear what we do as well as what we say. And in ways that words frequently cannot, connections get deeper, trust gets stronger, and understanding expands in this environment. One mom I recall had a hard time talking to her teenage son. He appeared aloof and unresponsive regardless of how much she talked or how frequently she attempted to express her emotions. She felt ignored and irritated. She then made the decision to try something different. She provided her presence without pressuring anyone, let quiet fill the voids, and listened more than she talked. Her son gradually opened up, not because she had said less, but rather because her quiet demeanor allowed him to be heard completely. Her quiet served as the link that words had been unable to create. Silence promotes patience and clarity, which is another crucial realization. We provide ourselves time to absorb our own feelings and ideas when we take a moment before answering. Reactive speech can obscure understanding, therefore, we steer clear of it. Clarity arises in this silence. Our reactions take on a measured, deliberate, and significant quality. Additionally, since the truth originates from a position of calm rather than haste, those around us are more inclined to hear it. Additionally, silence fosters resilience and self-awareness. We become more aware of our inner world when we stop talking all the time. We are aware of our wants, boundaries, and feelings. we gain self-assurance that is independent of continual affirmation. And strength, a silent authority that demands attention without using force, lies in this confidence. Think about this: the individual who maintains composure, calmness, and deliberateness frequently has the most influence during times of conflict, tension, or misunderstanding. Their quiet attracts notice, stimulates introspection, and expresses a depth that words cannot express. It is presence, not manipulation. It's honesty, not control. And these are frequently the times when people finally hear what they have been waiting a long time to understand. Now take a moment to yourself. Consider a scenario in which your repeated attempts at explanation or pleading have not succeeded. Consider taking a new approach, stopping, paying attention, and having faith that your genuineness, your presence, and your composure will convey the message. Take note of the feelings of serenity and empowerment that result from this strategy. The capacity of silence to allow others to reflect is another aspect of it. Constantly pushed messages are rarely internalized by people. They require space to think, digest, and interact with the core of what we are saying. By taking a step back, we create the space necessary for insight to arise naturally and without coercion. Lastly, quiet is a discipline of trust, trust in the timing of life, trust in others, and trust in yourself. Even when you are silent, you have faith that people are listening to you. Even when your words are inadequate, you have faith that your presence conveys significance. And you have faith that insight and clarity will come organically over time, free from pressure or demands. Think again: what changes might you see in your everyday life, relationships, and career if you accepted silence as a communication style? How would you feel if your calm genuineness, your steady attention, and your presence were more powerful than words? What would it be like to have faith that sometimes the deepest truth is communicated by remaining silent? Silence has a profound yet subtle power. It imparts self-awareness, empathy, patience, and presence. It enables you to establish more genuine and profound connections with other people. It changes how people see you, how they hear you, and how you see yourself. In the end, it illustrates a vital truth: sometimes people hear you when you don't say anything at all. It's not your words that are heard, but rather your presence, your essence, and the silent authority of your being. As you proceed, work on hearing without talking, being without pressuring, and having faith without giving an explanation. Let your message be conveyed by your presence. And keep in mind that the most effective thing you can do the next time you feel ignored is to say nothing at all, letting your silence do the talking.